The Yankees took 2 out of 3 against the Giants this weekend. We're going to discuss the good and the bad. And what is Aaron Hicks' role on this team?
You are Locked On Yankees, your daily New York Yankees podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Yankees. I'm your host, Stacey Gotsoulias. As always, Locked On Yankees is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'd like to thank you for making us your first listen. We appreciate it. Today's episode is brought to you by Ultimate Baseball GM. If you've ever dreamed of becoming Brian Cashman and managing your own franchise, then this game is for you. Our listeners get a 100% free boost to their franchise when using the promo code Locked On. Download in the App Store today. So this is the part of the show where I usually say hi to my producer, Steve, but he's not here today. He'll be back tomorrow, but he's not here today. He's working a hockey tournament, and I'm here by myself, so it's going to be like an old school Locked On Yankees. Should be interesting. So we're discussing the weekend, how it went for the Yankees, the good and the bad. Aaron Hicks is unsure of his role on the team, and the Yankees are going to be right back at it against the Phillies for a 3-game series, so let's get into it. Yankees win 2 out of 3 against the Giants. Great. Well, good. Great would have been a sweep, and should have been a sweep, but we'll get into that in a moment. It was the first time in franchise history that the Yankees have thrown shutouts in 2 out of the first 3 games of a season, which is kind of hard to believe when you think about the Yankees' history and the pitchers that they've had on their staff. I'm kind of surprised about that. I found that shocking when I saw that stat last night on the Twitter sphere. So Saturday's game was the frustrating one. That was the one that they lost. And it was because of the pitching. You know, the offense scored 5 runs. You should be able to win a game when your offense scores 5 runs. But there were moments when the offense could have done more, and they didn't. There was a whole bunch of factors on Saturday's game. They couldn't get the timely hit. The home plate umpire was bad for both teams. Umpire auditor, I believe, or umpire scorecard is the Twitter account that shows every home plate umpire's performance, and Andy Fletcher's called strike accuracy was 83%. That's not good. It was bad for both teams. There were some key at-bats that the Yankees were, I can't think of a better word than screwed, so I'm going to say screwed. They were screwed. So Clark Schmidt started the game. He went 3 1/3. He gave up 3 hits, 5 runs. No, that's backwards. 5 hits, 3 runs. That's right. He didn't pitch that bad, but it wasn't that great either because he had 76 pitches, 49 of them were strikes. And the frustrating thing about Schmidt was he looked great on the strikeouts. Like, he really did. The Giants couldn't do anything against him in those strikeouts, and you would think that getting some of those strikeouts would kind of fire him up and make him keep doing it, and he just couldn't do it. He had trouble putting people away. Michael King gave up 2 runs on 4 hits. He struck out 3 in 1 2/3 innings. There was also a play at the plate. I don't think they would have gotten the runner. I really don't. But it was a play that Trevino probably should have let King get. It was a bunt. And you could see the frustration on King's face because at that point he had given up a few hits and he was just really frustrated. Clay Holmes. We've talked about it ad nauseum on the show about how the Yankees don't really have a true closer, and Clay Holmes was in for 2/3 of an inning. He gave up 2 runs on 3 hits. He only faced 5 batters, and 3 of them got hits. So that was not good at all. Wandy Peralta, Albert Abreu, and Jimmy Cordero all had 3 clean innings. No, that's not it. All 3 of them had clean innings except for Abreu's pitch clock violation, but that didn't matter because it didn't score a run or do anything bad. But, the timely hitting thing was a big problem for the Yankees in that game. They had bases loaded, 1 out in the bottom of the 9th. Stanton comes up to the plate, hits into a double play to end the game. Just frustrating all around. And not fun because it was a Fox game. You had to listen to John Smoltz the whole time. And it was just, it was not an enjoyable Saturday. The weather was great, actually. The weather was bad before the game. It was about 70 when the game started. So if anyone was there, I feel bad that they had to sit through such a bad game. And in nice weather. because the people on Thursday sat through a good game in freezing weather, and everyone on Sunday, well, Sunday was okay, actually. And let's talk about it, because Sunday's game was so much better. It was another shutout for the Yankees. And Jhony Brito, let's talk about Jhony Brito, because he comes in, he makes his Major League Baseball debut, and he acted like it was no big thing. And you could see it when he was pitching. Didn't look nervous at all. Because I like watching when guys make their debuts and to see how they react to everything. Because, I say it all the time, and I know non-Yankee fans get annoyed when I say this, but you're making your Major League debut for the Yankees. That's a big deal. I mean, I know it's a big deal to make your Major League debut for everyone, but it's the Yankees. There's no denying that. And that's got to be crazy. And I wonder I know Volpe was talking about it on Thursday, where he was trying to soak things in, but he was kind of having trouble because he just was like, wow, I'm here. I can't believe I'm here. But Brito looked a little more, not nonchalant. He just looked like, I guess, business-like. He just was taking care of business yesterday, and it was great. He pitched 5 innings, only gave up 2 hits, walked 1, and he struck out 6. And he made some of those guys look really silly. He threw his changeup the most, followed by his four-seamer. I believe the changeup was 27, and the fastball was 22. Then he threw a couple of sinkers, some curves, and 3 sliders. Also, descending order, that's how he pitched. Changeup, four-seamer, sinker, curve, slider. His fastball velocity, he averaged 95.3. His high was 97.2 and his low was 91.8. So that's kind of an interesting range for a fastball. And he said after the game, his relaxed attitude, it wasn't that he was just, it wasn't like I said, it wasn't a nonchalant thing, but he said that guys like Severino, Herman, and Peralta basically just said to him, it's just a game. Yes, it's in a different stadium. Yes, you're in front of a lot more people than you normally are in Scranton, but it's just a game, and it worked. He was cool as a cucumber, and it was a lot of fun watching him do that. I mean, it's a lot of fun watching these guys make their debuts anyway. But yeah, that was something, I have to say. I was pretty impressed with him. And Isaiah Kiner Falelfa played center field on Sunday. And I'm shocked, but he actually looked very comfortable. I think there were 4 balls hit to him, and he didn't have a problem with any of them. He actually looked way more comfortable as a center fielder than he ever did as a shortstop. And he didn't do anything at the plate. He was 0 for 4. But it didn't matter because the Yankees won anyway. But it was just interesting, because all eyes were on him. You could hear the people in the stadium. You could hear certain noises when balls were hit to him. He had to go back on a couple of them. He had to come in on one of them. And yeah, I was kind of amazed at how comfortable he looked. My brother, who used to play baseball and now is an umpire, was saying how out of all the positions is probably the easiest for a shortstop to become an outfielder. And we've seen that with Oswaldo Cabrera. Because when he went out in left field, I mean, the first day he was in left field, he had to make a catch up against the wall, and he was perfectly fine. And the same thing happened with Isaiah Kiner Falelfa on Sunday. He was just roaming around center field perfectly fine. I think Boone put him out there because he knew that he wasn't going to get too many balls out there as long as the starter was out there. But it was just, yeah. And I'm sure everyone else watching the game was probably doing the same thing that I was. Anytime a ball was hit, you were just seeing how he set his feet, how he was tracking the ball. Because it's not easy tracking the ball in outfield at Yankee Stadium. Mike Yastrzemski had an issue yesterday. Let a ball go by him. And, for his first major league start in center field, I give Isaiah Kiner Falelfa an A. I think he did really well. And it's not going to be a permanent thing because Harrison Bader's coming back. Actually, a lot of the guys are coming back, and I forgot to write that in my notes. But there were a whole bunch of updates yesterday that guys are starting to throw or they're about to throw. Bader's swinging. Trevino is working out. Rodon threw a couple of bullpens, so some of the guys who are out are going to be back. And it's kind of funny because Saturday's game I expected them to lose. I just didn't expect them to lose the way that they did. I just figured, I don't know, I just felt like Clark Schmidt's starting, who knows how long he's going to last, and that's kind of what happened. But I wasn't expecting Michael King and Clay Holmes to do what they did, because if they hadn't done what they did, the Yankees could have won the game because they would have had enough runs. So, oh well. Again, 2 out of 3, perfectly acceptable way to open the season. But coming up next, we talked about Isaiah Kiner Falelfa playing center field. Who didn't play center field? Aaron Hicks. He had a pinch hit appearance on Saturday, but he didn't start on Sunday. So what's his role on the team? He's not sure himself. So we're going to talk about that next. But first, Pro Baseball GM is the coolest game I've played in a long time. I always thought I could be a great Major League GM, but it turns out it's really not that easy. If you've had the same thought and fantasized about managing your own franchise, download Pro Baseball GM immediately. You get to manage every strategic aspect of a franchise, playing through seasons and leading your franchise and fans to glory as you build a historic dynasty. You're responsible for hiring the coaches and the staff, managing the team finances, scouting and drafting players. You manage through difficult personalities and injuries. You navigate your franchise through free agency and all the ups and downs of a full season. All this in a challenging and realistic game world. Ultimate Baseball GM is completely free and playable offline. You can play on the go, as you want, and when you want to. Locked On Yankees listeners get a 100% free boost to their franchise when using the promo code Locked On in the game store. So make sure to check it out. To download the game, go to the App Store, both of them, Apple and Google, and you can also go to probaseballgm.com. That's probaseballgm.com. Ultimate Baseball GM. Start your dynasty today. So because of Isaiah Kiner Falelfa starting in center field, there was a lot of chatter on Sunday, mainly about Aaron Hicks, because as soon as the Yankees put the lineup out on Twitter, I saw a sea of tweets from people saying, "Oh, this is interesting. This is really interesting. Of all people to start in center field, the person who played shortstop up until 2 weeks ago," which is true. But as I said in segment 1, Isaiah Kiner Falelfa looked pretty good out there. He's, pretty athletic and, yeah. But Hicks, Brendan Cuddy of The Athletic published an article on Hicks. I believe it came out after the game, but he spoke to him before the game. I can't remember the timeline now. I read it this morning. Hicks said he's unsure of his role on the team, and he didn't start any of the games against the Giants at all. His first and only at-bat was a pinch-hitting situation in the 7th inning on Saturday. He struck out. Wasn't his fault. Andy Fletcher was having issues behind the plate. Called him out on a really awful pitch that was nearly in the opposing batting box. It was bad. It was bad. And I know a lot of people will say, well, it's Hicks. Of course he struck out. But I'm not going to blame him for that because Fletcher struck out DJ on the same kind of strike 3. I think it was in the first inning. I think it happened in the first inning of the game. It was early. It was early in the game. And I thought to myself, oof, if he's going to be calling strikes like this is going to be bad. And it was. So don't fault Hicks for that. That wasn't his fault. Now, Boone said it was simply a matchup issue, which is why Hicks didn't start in any of the games against the Giants, which, I guess that's a valid point. But you have a player who thinks he can play, who wants to play. He wants to show people that he can do better than he did in 2022. But you also have, I guess, other guys that can not do just as well. Well, yeah, no, I guess they can do just as well as Aaron Hicks. And, a lot of people were questioning, why can't they move him? Why can't they get rid of him? Why don't they just dump him? You can't just dump him. He's getting paid $10,785,714, which is a very odd number, but that's what he's been paid the past few years. He's getting paid that this year. Then in 24 and 25, he's getting paid $9,785,715. And then there's a $12.5 million team option in 2026 with a $1 million buyout. The team's not picking up the option. If he's still here, you know what? If he's still here in 2026 and we're all still here in 2026, I will eat this hat because I don't think that's going to happen. I think they're going to find a way to get rid of him at some point, but I don't see it happening anytime soon because what team is going to want to pick up that money? He hasn't really shown anyone that he can play. The one season where he played the most games in the last 4 was the COVID-shortened season. He played 54 out of 60 games, which is really good. But he played 32 in 2021. He only played 53? I was just looking at his numbers. In 2019, that was the year that everyone was injured on the Yankees. And it felt like he fell apart right after he signed the deal with the Yankees. So it's not that easy to move him. And we've spoken about this many times. It's not easy to move him. It's not easy to move Donaldson. I think the easiest guy to move would be Gleyber, but Gleyber's contributing and Gleyber is playing. And he's, he has a home run. He has some hits. He's doing fine. But Hicks, I guess you can say he can't really prove what he can do because he's not playing. But again, Boone said it was a matchup thing. Now, Hicks said, if you would have told me in spring training that I wouldn't have started the first 3 games, I wouldn't have believed you, but it is what it is. There's nothing I can do about it. Just sit around and wait for my opportunity and try my best. So depending on the matchups against the Phillies, we'll see if Hicks makes the lineup at any point. He probably will. I think he probably will. So we'll find out about Hicks Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, if he plays against the Phillies. And we're going to talk about those matchups in a moment. But first, the Built March Madness bracket is here. We know you have a favorite bar or puff, and now is your time to make it count. Go to BuiltMarchMadness.com to vote for your favorites. I voted for cookie dough chunk puff because it overtook mint brownie. I can't believe it either. And you can support your favorite bar or puff too. And when you go to vote for your favorite bar or puff, you'll be entered into a drawing where 50 lucky Locked On listeners will get a free bar of Built. Not only that, but one Locked On fan will win a 12-month subscription to Built and have Built's best bars or puffs delivered monthly straight to your door. You gotta try Built. Built is the best protein bar ever. Seriously, they're so amazing you won't think they're good for you. What makes Built bars and puffs so good? Well, for starters, they're all high in protein, low in sugar, and covered in 100% chocolate. That's right, 100% real chocolate. Run to BuiltMarchMadness.com right now to vote for your favorite bar or puff and pick up a box while you're there. You can vote every day in March and into April, so hop in and support your pick. So the Yankees against the Phillies. It's a 2009 World Series rematch. Just kidding. They've played many times since then. The Phillies had a rough time in Texas. Their pitching had a very rough time in Texas. It was the first series of Bruce Bochy's tenure, I guess, as Rangers manager. And the Phillies got, what's the word I want to say? Battered? No, that's a terrible word to use, but they did. They lost one of the games 16-3. Even the opening day matchup for both teams didn't turn out the way they wanted it to. It was Jacob deGrom against Aaron Nola, and you would think that matchup would be really good because it's both teams' number 1 pitchers, and both pitchers did not do well. The Yankees will see Nola in this series. Not yet, though. We'll talk about that in a moment. For Monday night, it's Taijuan Walker against Nestor Cortes. It's a 7:05 start, and it's Cortez's first start of the season. Now, don't expect him to pitch too much. He probably has a pitch limit because he only started pitching, a few starts ago, and they're, ramping him up. We don't want him to do too much too soon. And I believe the Yankees have faced Taijuan Walker, right? They faced him when he was with the Mets, and some of the guys have some familiarity, what's the word, with him. It's Monday, okay? It's Monday. And then on Tuesday, Matt Strom, I should know how to say his name. He was with the Red Sox last year against Domingo Germán. The Yankees are familiar with Strom. As I said, he pitched for Boston. He only pitched with them one season, but I recall seeing him in a few games against the Yankees last year. And as I said, Aaron Nola on Wednesday. Wednesday is a 105 start. It's a 105 start. Aaron Nola against Garrett Cole. And as I said, Nola had a tough time against the Rangers. Cole did not have any trouble against the Giants. So that'll be an interesting matchup between the two number ones from both teams. But I like this schedule so far. It's not usual for the Yankees to open up at home against two National League teams. And let's hope they can win 2 out of 3 against Philly. That would be great. But I do enjoy this whole, you're seeing a bunch of matchups that you normally wouldn't see. The Red Sox played the Orioles. That's usual. But the Phillies opened up against Texas. The Cardinals opened up against Toronto. Toronto was in St. Louis to open the season. Then you had other familiar matchups, the Marlins and the Mets. Let's see, the Dodgers played, did they play the Rockies? And I think they split their series against the Rockies. And, oh yeah, Pirates, Reds. So you had familiar rivalry matchups, and then you also had matchups that you normally wouldn't see. But I kind of like this. I'm looking forward to the Yankees playing teams that they don't normally play. I'm looking forward to them not playing as many games against the AL East opponents. But this makes it so, the AL East is going to be tough. And if they're not beating up on each other and they get to beat up on other teams that are not necessarily trying, because we can say there are a bunch of teams in Major League Baseball who aren't trying to do anything this year. And since everyone is facing everyone, a lot of the upper echelon teams have a chance to take advantage of the fact that they're facing a bunch of teams that aren't trying to do anything. These are teams that are out already. They have no hope of making anything happen this season. So it'll be interesting to see how this goes. But for the Yankees so far, 2 out of 3, as Meatloaf always said, ain't bad. And going into this series against the Phillies, you have to be happy about that, because we weren't sure about how the pitching matchups were going to be in the opening series with Clark Schmidt and Jhony Brito starting. And, Schmidt ran into trouble, but the bullpen also ran into trouble. And then on Sunday, everyone looked great. Brito looked great. The bullpen looked great. They shut the Giants out. And yeah, so there was good and there was bad, but it was mostly good for the Yankees this weekend. So Locked On Yankees releases 5 episodes a week, Monday through Friday, so make sure you subscribe for more content like this. And go Yankees! Thanks for making Locked On Yankees your first listen. Now for your second listen, check out Locked On Fantasy Baseball. Win your league by listening to Matt and Dom every day as they bring you the best fantasy draft strategies. Find Locked On Fantasy Baseball wherever you find your podcasts and on YouTube. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm Stacey Gotsoulias, and we'll talk to you tomorrow.